internet full of cat videos and drive-by dunks and Pablo Torre dancing videos.
Yeah.
And the occasional kicking video. And today we have the curious case of Central Florida's kicker and what choosing YouTube over football tells you about the NCAA.
Or as a kicker.
That was the Wolf of Wall Street from your wedding, Pablo. You nailed it.
That's a real layered animated GIF if people want to delve into.
Tony Reale.
Israel, Pablo, Kate, and Jackie today. Only one wrote a book that dropped today. Kate Fagan's What Made Maddie Run. It's the story of Madison Holleran, high school and college athlete. You've worked years on this, Kate. What about this story moves you?
Well, when I first heard the story of Madison Holleran, and she was a young woman who died by suicide during her freshman year at University of Pennsylvania, it really made me think about my first couple years at the University of Colorado playing hoops and how much anxiety I had and how difficult that transition was. I also had a sister who ran cross country at Dartmouth, also in the Ivy League, and I had a lot of philosophies and theories about perfectionism and what it was like to be a runner. And so I thought there would be a lot to dive into about what Madison Holleran said about who we are as a society now and what's happening among our young people.
What have you learned?
I've learned a lot about what's going on with young people, about the rising rates of anxiety and mental health, about athletic departments that are attempting to get ahead of this issue and put more funding into the mental health of their student athletes and students on college campuses and the college counseling centers that are also trying to deal with the rising rates of anxiety and mental health. And there's a whole slew of reasons for why this could be happening, ranging from social media to how parents are raising kids. There's just so many factors at play, but Madison's story really touches on a lot of the issues that high school and college-age kids are dealing with when they make that transition from high school to college.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning for you, and The Daily Show Thursday night. How cool is that? And real talk right now, I've told you this privately, but your first piece for ESPNW is one of the best things ESPN has ever turned out, in my opinion. It's for all people seeking hope, which is everybody in the world. And here's a prediction. Reese Witherspoon or Ron Howard or Ava DuVernay will pick up this book and make it into a TV show.
Make it happen.
All right,
and you're going to leave us,
ears.
and you'll be great. That's your Goodwill Hunting is what I'm telling you. Congrats.
Thank you, Tony.
Let's do a show.
It's the first word.
The Golden State Warriors of Major League Baseball. Plaschke was calling the Dodgers that yesterday. Yankees GM Brian Cashman called the Red Sox that this winter after Chris Sale. And Red Sox GM Dave Dombrowski, well...
But I think that Brian probably has made them the Golden State Warriors, and we're the significant underdog.
He called the Yankees that after getting Sonny Gray. Jackie, this is your account. Is Dombrowski being a little cheeky here, or is there any truth to what he said?
I think it was very well played by Mr. Dombrowski. I just remember back in the day when Lucchino was calling the Yankees the evil empire. He seemed a little more frothy at the mouth when he was saying it. Dombrowski, I thought, handled this quite suavely. But I would say that if I'm the Dodgers, if I'm the Astros, even if I'm the Diamondbacks for that matter, I would take a little issue with the idea that somebody else is the Golden State Warriors since they all have more wins than the Yankees. I will say this.
Is anybody the Golden State Warriors is my question to you. Do we have one defending champion, of course.
No, of course not. That's not true. The Dodgers are the closest thing. Bill is right. I will say this. I think Sonny Gray was the most important transaction of the baseball season at the trading deadline. It does make the Yankees the firm favorites over the Red Sox at this point, and I think that's pretty significant. What the Red Sox have missed remains Ortiz, no batting power in that lineup. They need the young guys to come through, and that's
so you would say the Yankees are the favorite, at least in the AL East, after this trade. Okay.
Well, that's what
Kate,
I mean. Yeah.
Kate, when you're hearing a GM say the Golden State Warriors of baseball, what are you thinking?
Well, first, I think to myself what it says about where we are right now in sports culture, that the New York Yankees with 27 World Series titles are using the Golden State Warriors as like a proxy for greatness. I mean, that's where we are right now in sports. Now, if we're asking the question of which team now is the best, I think that that's still the Dodgers, given who they picked up and their record. Now, if we're saying when we're comparing them to the Warriors, like who mimics the Warriors the best, who are kind of built like the Warriors, I actually think that is the Yankees when you consider the depth of young talent that they have brought up and now how they've added pieces from outside to really bolster it.
Okay. Pablo Torre, how about you?
Yeah, this is a rock bottom for the Yankees. I mean, they're supposed to be the Goliath that just buys things, not out of desperation, but because they can get it. Like, the Yankees are the Golden State Warriors before the Golden State Warriors were anything else, so I would be offended if I'm a Yankee fan at this point. That is just sad, but Sonny Gray is an answer for them. He is a sub-2 ERA in his last, since June 25th, I believe. That's only behind Kershaw, the aforementioned ace of the Dodgers, of course, and behind, a bunch of really good guys. But one of the things that the Yankees need to remember here is that there is no single player who can be a Kevin Durant type impact acquisition, because this is baseball. No player can be Kevin Durant in a sport where you gotta take turns and you gotta alternate days of pitching. So the comparison kind of falls flat on that.
And Israel Gutierrez.
Well, I'll go with this. I mean, first of all, I think Chris Sale is more of a Kevin Durant type of acquisition than Sonny Gray is. But I would say with the Yankees, though, Aaron Judge is kind of the Steph Curry, if you will. Sort of a game changer, comes in and sort of boosts your whole franchise to where they can be great for a long time.
So
I'd say the tiebreaker is the Red Sox actually have a Matt Barnes, so they're more like the Warriors. But what I really like about this is just give me more of this.
You checked his ERA, is he?
Yeah, this is a great rivalry, and obviously they have a great race going on.
The tiebreaker is nobody's winning games like the Dodgers are in baseball this year, so neither of these teams are. Last word, Jackie Mack.
Yeah, and you know what? The Red Sox did one good thing. They need to address some middle setup relief for closer Kimbrel, and they got him in Addison Reed. But they need their young players to come through, and they're last in the majors right now in home runs, I think.
We've been warned. We'll move on. Let's talk about this. Jets rookie Jamal Adams. You guys hear his exchange?
If I had a perfect place to die, I would die on the field. I would be at peace.
You can hear some applause there. Commissioner Goodell was sitting right next to him. Praised Adams' love for the game. Martellus Bennett disagreed, tweeting, "Football's great, but I ain't dying for this bleep." Said it was dumb for Adams to say it. Israel, where are you on this?
Well, my first place is I want to know who those people who instinctively applauded right when he said that, who they are and what they were thinking and how seriously they take football. But I'll also say this. I mean, you're basically talking about one guy in Jamal Adams who's probably not prepared to speak about this subject right now with sort of the media training that he has so far in his young career. And then you've got the other side of Roger Goodell, who's somebody who wants to say the exact opposite and probably sort of massage the truth a little bit to help the NFL. So we've got two parties here that are going to try to say the opposite things because Adam is just a football player. His dad was a professional football player, and it sort of is sort of life or death for him. But the idea of dying on the field is clearly not what we're talking about here. If you explained instead how somebody would suffer from CTE over years and have their family suffer and die this terrible death, you wouldn't hear applause after that. And you certainly probably wouldn't hear Jamal Adams say, yeah, that's the way I want to die, and I want to do it for this sport.
Pablo Torre?
Even if you believe the NFL has a resemblance to the tobacco industry, I think it's still fair to say we let people buy cigarettes. The difference is they are completely or should be completely aware of the risks involved in smoking said cigarettes. So if you're Jamal Adams, one of the things that is troubling is his description of death in football as this gladiatorial, glorious kind of spectacle in the center of the arena. But CTE families who've had victims of this disease, they don't speak about it like that. They talk about what Izzy said, the longitudinal decrease in quality of life. It's a lot like dementia. There is very little sexiness, cinematic sexiness in the demise of a player who's suffering from this disease. So we have questions that should be answered and asked about research, but the description here is, I think, that's what's troubling.
Hey, Fagan?
Adams is like pretty much every young person when you ask them to consider like the long-term health effects of anything. I mean, there's not a lot of young people who aren't going to drink or smoke or worry about their eating habits simply because of what might happen years and years from now. So I'm less concerned about Adams, and I'm more concerned about what he has waded into. I'm thinking about the Don Van Natta piece from 2012, the profile of Roger Goodell, where he has that great insight about how Roger Goodell is concerned about a death on the football field as being that last straw of the CTE issue. And so Adams has inadvertently waded into that territory with his comments.
Jackie McMullen.
Yeah, I'm with Kate a little bit on this, too. I think Adams, he needs to have more awareness. We've covered that already. I think he's young enough to, he should have understood what the Dorson family, the Seau family, and these people may be feeling. So that's a mistake. I think everybody should give him a pass on that. I'm sure he's going to apologize at some point, said that's not what I meant. I'm much more concerned with the commissioner sitting next to him. He had an opportunity there to not only clarify for this young man, but also to address the idea of CTE and the problems it's causing his league and the seriousness of this issue. Instead, he went back to old data from 2012 suggesting that the average player lives 5 years less than an average NFL player. That data can be skewed all sorts of different ways. What about the data that just came out that players who had issues with CTE, that 110 and 111 of them had that damage? That's also a little skewed, I understand. But let's talk about this issue with real numbers, with real stuff, instead of going back to data that's almost 6 years old and doesn't really make any sense.
So much of this is the perception of toughness, right? And that is so linked to football players. Just yesterday in Arizona, Bruce Arians put the Cardinals through a tough practice. He said, play like bleep, I'll treat you like bleep. His F-bomb count was 113, according to the Arizona Central. I think they were joking a little bit. He moved the Cardinals' practice outside in the morning and had them do wind sprints at the end in mid-90-degree heat. Pablo, what do you think of when you hear that? And what do you think of the whole play like bleep, treat you like bleep?
Well, look, performance enhancement through punishment, through this very macho approach is ancient. Like, I get it. I understand. I'm not saying there's no place for it in football, but what's interesting about science today is that they're pointing out performance enhancement through punishment, through physical wear and tear is counterproductive. Like, one of the things that's interesting about this movement to treat players like race cars, insofar as you got to polish them and repair them and keep them tip-top in the garage, you don't run your car into the ground just to try and get better performance out of it. One of the things that's interesting about that is that it's dehumanizing, yes, but it is completely contrary to the whole, we're going to run you until you can't run anymore because that's going to make you better. Scientifically, I just don't think that's the case anymore.
Hey, Fagan?
We should point out, though, that Arians does not have a reputation for doing this with his players. I mean, this is an anomaly for him. This, to me, reads like the one day every preseason in pretty much every sport where the coach decides that you're not practicing well enough and you as a player can't even tell necessarily until the coach tells you that the practice is awful. And that seems to happen every preseason, and then you have to run a little bit at the end. You obviously want the coach to be concerned about the humidity and the temperature out there, but if all those things are taken into account, this is that one day in preseason where a coach hammers home those points.
Israel Gutierrez?
Yeah, the hope here would be that they have done some research and they do their homework and they maybe check, heat index or the how many times they do this, and whether they just do it sort of seldomly, that it's okay. Because I do think there is something to, and I know it's not for better performance, but just punishment for lack of effort, if you will. That's sort of the tough part of sports that people say is sort of getting really soft. Outside of taking their money away, which you can't do for poor performance necessarily, some sort of physical punishment is kind of the only way you can go here. So as long as it doesn't happen too often, as long as there's homework done there, I'm not too concerned about it.
And Jackie McMullen after the horn.
Right, so it's physical punishment, though. It's the last day of July. What exactly are we physically punishing these people for with games quite a bit away? And I don't want to get too dramatic here, but Corey Stringer died on a football field on a day in the mid-90s when somebody pushed him a little too far. I'm not saying that Bruce Arians was, obviously, he's a very fine coach with a great reputation, but you don't want to ever make a mistake like that, do you? Right?
Horn. We'll take a break right here. Buy or sell next. Choosing YouTube over football. Love that story.
Buy or sell.
The college kicker who chose YouTube over football. Do you see this? Central Florida's Donald De La Haye ruled ineligible by the NCAA. In a release, the NCAA said making money off of YouTube videos, not automatically a violation, but if the videos are athletic-based, that is a violation, and De La Haye is choosing that over football. In a tweet, De La Haye, all I wanted was to keep inspiring and motivating others through my content. Didn't know it would cost me my education. Israel, what are you buying? What are you selling?
I think I'm selling all of it here. It's just kind of ridiculous. So you can make money off of YouTube as a student athlete, but you cannot do it by depicting any part of you being a student athlete, which includes your skill. So it means some wide receiver cannot catch something and put that on YouTube and make a dime out of that because his skill is catching. It's absolutely ridiculous. He has to give up his eligibility for it. Meanwhile, the coach at UCF is making $2 million a year.
Pablo Torre?
This is just another example of the acrobatics the NCAA needs to commit to in order to have a consistent policy, because it was the case that in video games, you could not be identified if you're a college athlete as yourself, if you were in EA Sports, college football, or whatever. And now you cannot be yourself in a video that you are making because there's the possibility of monetization. The problem is everything on the internet can be monetized and nothing in the NCAA can be if you're using your likeness, which tells me that this is the first case of many that's going to come.
Kate Fagan.
This reminds me of Colorado receiver Jeremy Bloom's interaction with the NCAA and having to choose between skiing and football. It reminds me of it simply in the fact that in both of those cases, the NCAA has no ability to actually be nuanced and nimble and flexible in assessing each individual case. They just have something blanket and bureaucratic, and when that happens, it's evidence of a broken system.
Jackie McMullen.
All right, so I can't believe that I'm going to do this, but I think I might defend the NCAA for once in my life a little bit here. And here's why. So this kicker is not, his situation is completely fine. He should be able to do this. He sends the money that he makes back home to Costa Rica. I understand his position entirely. But by making the decision he did, he just gave up a full scholarship, okay? So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. From the NCAA's purpose, let's say you're a running back for Alabama, and one of those boosters slips a whole bunch of money in your pocket to wear your Alabama uniform and to hawk some kind of product that goes back to this booster. We wouldn't like that, right?
Okay.
So isn't
Did
that
Jackie
kind of the same
convince
thing?
any of you guys? Israel? Pablo? Israel first.
No, it's a case-by-case basis. They reviewed this and they thought it was too bad. It shouldn't have been.
Pablo?
They gave him a waiver. They gave him a way out.
It is hard to restrict the free market when you live in a capitalist country. And that's the acrobatics we're talking about. It's case by case, and it's also just let them make money, because it's really hard to do the opposite.
We'll move on. Buy or sell two. Rockets GM Daryl Morey versus NBA awards. Quote, you could argue for eliminating the awards altogether. I don't really see a good way to do it that doesn't have major issues. Buy or sell Morey here, Pablo, getting rid of NBA postseason awards.
So I buy where he's coming from insofar as I used my non-existent MVP vote on James Harden. I get that. But I sell his actual conclusion as one of these media members who's super inconsistent, because one of the things that's fun about these awards and the Hall of Fame is that we never define the terms. If you never define the terms of a debate, the debate never ends. And that is why I think some of us are employed. Thank you for that debate never ending.
Non-existent vote on James Harden. Here are some non-existent points. Go ahead, Fagan.
I mean, Morey also makes it seem as if Harden fit into the parameters of the previous MVP award parameters when he actually didn't. I mean, the previous 10 were either on number one seeds overall or made the NBA Finals. So it was already going to be a subjective change to choose James Harden as this year's MVP. And I mean, if we're really going to rid the NBA or any sport of subjectivity, we're losing pretty much all of it except swimming and running. So I'm selling it.
Jackie McMullen.
I understand where Daryl's coming from. He's all about numbers, bottom line, analytics. So to him, the numbers didn't make sense because Houston won more games than Russell Westbrook. All of that makes sense. But it was an extraordinary circumstance in that a player, Russell Westbrook, averaged a triple-double for the first time since Oscar Robinson. So all that makes sense to me as well. The bottom line to me is this. If you're Daryl Morey, you have to understand these awards matter to people, including, by the way, your coach. Go ask Mike D'Antoni if he'd like to vacate his Coach of the Year award.
Israel Gutierrez.
Well, I mean, we just gave Steve Bartman a World Series ring, so we might as well give James Harden MVP, too. Just give those trophies out. No, but in seriousness, I do think Daryl Morey, the base of his argument is weak because Steph Curry won the MVP against James Harden, not just because of his numbers, not just because of the wins, rather, but because of the impact he had on that team.
You mean a few years ago?
Definitely
Yeah,
the MVP there.
Yeah, right. You know, you sounded like Blake Griffin there. Why don't we just get rid of championships as well? Kate Fagan, thanks for being with us today. I know you have a busy day and a busy week. Daily Show Thursday night, Kate Fagan for What Made Maddie Run. And Jackie McMullen, we'll see you next time as well. Gutierrez, Tori, show to next.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo!
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Showdown 1, taking a selfie, inadvertently giving everybody the Yankees clubhouse Wi-Fi password. You giving him a pass for this, Israel, or what?
Well, I'm going to give him a pass, even though I don't think it's that big of a secret if it's posted on the wall. As somebody who has sent a text message to the wrong person it was intended to and had to dance around that, it can happen. It happens.
People tend to focus on the password in situations like this. I believe that password is media, password, whatever, tic-tac-toe sign. What they should do is change the name of the network. Change it to viruses. Change your name of your Wi-Fi network to viruses, and no one's going to log into that. Just do that.
That is profound. You just blew my mind. 2 points for Pablo Torre. We'll move on. Showdown 2. Finding out you were traded while feeding a rhinoceros at the zoo. That's Kinsler. He's going to the Nats now, Pablo. Good omen or bad omen for Washington?
It is a great omen, Tony, because people may not realize that the rhinoceros lives about 50 years. That's a really long time for an animal that big with that kind of a heart and cardiovascular system.
I don't know what the metaphor is here. I don't even know what the joke is here. But I do know, according to Deadspin, there are no more rhinoceri in the Washington, D.C. zoo. So he's not going to be able to do that anymore during his home games.
The joke here is Pablo's shirt, of course, Israel Gutierrez. The win here and the feeder of rhinos, Pablo Torre. Takes time.
I wanted to celebrate the fact that the NFL has finally done something we thought they never would, which is agree to cooperate with the NFL Players Association on marijuana. And this is important for real reasons, like the fact that opioid addiction is a real issue both in society and in sports, both in the notion that painkillers are something that's very dangerous to keep feeding into the bodies of NFL players. But here's the cost. Here's the backdrop. Weed's about to become a lot less cool, because the NFL is embracing it, and nothing is less rebellious than doing anything that the NFL approves of.
Nerd.
Just a warning to society on that.
There's a guy wearing that shirt today, which is not surprising at all either. All right, 99 career wins for Pablo Torre, the 22nd fastest to 99.